All right, we've got a big Woj bomb.
Ooh.
The Utah Jazz are sending Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland for Lauri Markkanen, Abaji, Sexton, and 3 unprotected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. It's from Woj. This is a massive deal, obviously. Woj is also reporting, obviously Utah still has some veterans, and Bogdanovich, Conley, got Clarkson there as well, and those guys potentially be on the move. We could see the Jazz trying to do the OKC rebuild, acquiring all these picks. But I guess transitioning to a fantasy perspective, Kenyon, what do you think this does for Donovan Mitchell?
I mean, it can't help. I love the fit there. We've seen Garland and Sexton together and how that's kind of worked. But Mitchell just went from a possibly off the charts highest usage guy in Utah, putting up crazy numbers without anybody there, to now going next to Garland and Mobley and their young core that they're building up there. I think he'll still be good. He's going to get his own, right? He's going to, they paid all this. They sent them this package for him to still score and be Donovan Mitchell. They still have Garland. They still have Mobley, though. And I think Mitchell probably still like a, 20 points per game, north of 20 points per game, maybe 22. I think he takes a little down tick everywhere, but he's still going to be a stud. I think Garland also takes a down tick everywhere. But is there anybody on this Cavs team that benefits fantasy-wise from this trade?
I don't think so. I think I would say I still expect Donovan Mitchell to be like a, potentially 24, 25. I agree that heading into the season, I would have had Donovan Mitchell higher than I will have him just with what the Jazz looked like for sure. But still, I agree. For Garland specifically, last season, I don't think that he has the potential to be a 22 and 9 assist guy that we saw at points last season. I feel like we'll see 2020 Garland where he was, 17.4 points per game, 6.1 assists per game when he was playing alongside Sexton.
Yep.
I think obviously Donovan Mitchell is going to have that usage. Garland, not as much as what we saw at the end of last season. I think the impact to Mobley, it's tough to say. It's not like he shot a ton. I don't anticipate this having a monster impact on what he can do. Obviously, he's super young as well, so we'll kind of see, his development and what happens there. I guess for Sexton, I think it's more interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think we could really see the Jazz. They're looking like they're going to blow it up. And what if it's a similar situation we saw with, Murray last season with the Spurs? Not a lot of superstars around him, had crazy usage, and ended up being this crazy value at the guard spot with what he was able to do. And I think Sexton could really be that for the Jazz, especially if they're just going to go young, acquire a bunch of picks, especially if they move some of these veterans, right? If Bogdanovich, if Conley moves these guys, and they're all young with a bunch of picks, I think Sexton could be a crazy value. We'll see what the Jazz look like, but do you agree?
Yeah, I think Sexton now is where Mitchell kind of was. Obviously, they're kind of different talents. I think Mitchell's better. But Sexton is now in this role where it's like, okay, we're paying for you now to come over here and be our young guy, our young guard. I think, like you said, though, they need to move those veterans. Bogdanovich, Conley, Clarkson, they're still very good players. Bogdanovich was a 20 points per guy last season, 2 seasons ago. And Mike Conley, getting a little old, but a good savvy vet. Clarkson, another big scorer off the bench. So these are guys that can hurt Sexton from being that high usage guy. So they have to get rid of them. If they get rid of them, then yes, I agree. Sexton could be a steal fantasy-wise and could be an absolute stud in that rebuild. But going back to the Cavs side, I think Mobley is probably maybe the only one that could benefit from this. I think, he's still young. Like you said, he didn't take a lot of shots. I think he still has a lot of opportunity to grow. He doesn't need a lot of shots, right? He's a high percentage guy, field goal wise. He can stretch the floor this time, and I think Mitchell and Garland can manipulate the defense to really help Mobley get more open. And they're still going to use Mobley a lot. He's still also part of their, new franchise look. And so I think Mobley is probably one of the Cavs guys that I still feel good about as far as fantasy stock goes, right?
Yeah, we didn't talk about some of the other Cavs guys. Anything you want to add about, potentially like a LeVert, or is this just kind of muddy the water for, the guys we didn't mention at the, 2 and 3 spot for the Cavs?
Yeah, definitely all these supporting cast guys, it gets a little awkward because you just have so much usage now going to Mitchell. There's so many minutes that Mitchell's going to have to soak up and take. I think they still are committed to Garland and Mobley and even Jared Allen. So you get Markkanen out of there, that's fine. I wasn't a big fan of him in Cleveland anyway, to be honest. I still like Kevin Love, Jared Allen, Mobley. It's still crowded there too in the backcourt, but I think they're going to prioritize the young Mobley and their guy they paid a lot for in Mitchell and their other all-star, Darius Garland.
Yeah, for sure. This will be a fun one. We'll see. I really think that the Jazz might not be done making moves. I know we're approaching the start of the season, but it looks like they're blowing it up and sticking to, potentially a young core rebuild like we saw with OKC. So this will definitely be, a situation to monitor, heading into fantasy draft season. But, looking forward to it. It'll be fun to see if we get any more Woj bomb tweets before the season.